Probably the oldest tradition we have on this channel is looking at Pokémon sprites once a year. We saw as the games advanced, the sprites got better, fitting the official artwork more with each generation. We even ran out of mainline Pokémon games that used sprites since we've been doing this for so long. But we finally reached the 10-year anniversary when we started this tradition with the first internationally released Pokémon games, Red and Blue versions. So for this occasion, we're doing a reprise of that original list from 10 years ago, but with a twist. We specifically want to find the weirdest sprites from these games, since many of them deviate far from how the Pokémon are known to look now. Red and Blue may have been the second versions of these sprites after the Japanese Red and Green versions, but Red and Blue tend to be the classic sprites that we default to when looking at how far Pokémon has come. And to help me celebrate the classics are my classic co-hosts, Judgment Meter.
It's me, but 10 years older. I am so old.
And AT from Software Agents HQ, who provided the footage for this video, captured on the original hardware for extra nostalgia.
Hey everybody, I'm in this one. The first internationally released Pokemon games introduced a world of whimsy and wonder that anyone could play anytime, anywhere. But because of technical limitations and the developers still figuring out the franchise, there were some things that were unintentionally funny and even grotesque.
And that's not always a bad thing. There's something cool about how feral these early designs were, where they looked just enough like how they were supposed to be.
Enough. That's so sad. You're hurting their self-esteem.
Now let's glitch out with the top 10 weirdest sprites in Pokemon Red and Blue versions. Number 10, Kingler. As you would expect, it was hard to pick just 10 for this list, which is why we'll have an extensive honorable mention segment later, but Kingler just squeaked in on here, and I gave him a spot since this sprite is deceptively inaccurate. At first, it looks like it matches the official design. Looks like a crab, head shapes are good, eyes work, feet are in the right place. Almost passed on it since I thought it was accurate. But then I noticed the claws. They're both the same size. Kingler's most distinctive feature is he has one giant claw and then one proportionally smaller claw. However, they took away his defining trait where both these claws are either massive or tiny, but he's holding them very close to the camera in this sprite so they appear huge.
This one might be special, I don't know. I don't know a lot about crabs to make an informed decision.
The funny thing is, his back sprite shows that one of his claws is big, so there's false advertising somewhere. The reason the back sprite has the big claw is all the Red and Blue back sprites are based on the front sprites from the original Japanese Red and Green versions. They just reused the back sprites from that game in this game, which is why some back sprites look very different from their respective sprites in Red and Blue. And this opens up the question, how did they do it right with the big claw in the first game, and then they redesigned him without the big claw for Red and Blue? My guess, just an oversight. They were probably trying to find other cool poses to make this crab threatening, and didn't consider the claw. But my favorite theory about this sprite is it's actually accurate if you look at it from a different way, where you think of it as Kingler holding his small claw close to the camera and his big claw far from it, so the perspective just makes it look like they're the same size. I'm going with that headcanon because it's cool. Now we can acknowledge the claws are different on this sprite.
It looks like he has two large claws. I don't know how he got them, and I don't know what he's going to use them for, but that's what it appears to me.
Well, then adjust your glasses. They're different now.
I'm so old.
Number 9, Lickitung. Lickitung has always been a weird Pokemon on its own, so maybe this sprite being weird is on brand for it. It's been hard to confirm what it's based on, whether it's some sort of reptile or folklore, but what we do know is Lickitung is a creature that is defined by having a tongue that's as long as its body. But it's not just long, it's also thick, and that's sort of an issue with this sprite. Its tongue reaches the length requirement, but it looks flat, like a dog's tongue, and on top of that, they made his nostrils big. All the size lost in his tongue went straight to his nose. His nostrils should be little lines, but instead look like when a cartoon character is taking a big whiff of something. Honestly, I'm more distracted by how big his nose holes are than by the huge tongue, but that might be because I'm so used to his most notable attribute.
Better to sniff you with.
Lickitung is awkward for a variety of reasons. It has a pretty mediocre and unremarkable moveset, and in Red and Blue, it's one of those Pokemon that you can't even catch in the wild.
The only way to get him is to find that one NPC who will trade it to you because, ooh, mysterious Pokemon that can't be caught.
I gave up my Slowbro for this guy.
I stay up late at night, upset about that.
Oh, so
it's my bedtime.
Another funny thing about this sprite is the hands. I think he's supposed to be doing some sort of jazz hands motion like on old official artwork, but the way his sprite positions him, it looks like he's holding his head like a Psyduck headache, and the way his thumbs are, it looks like he's double flipping the bird. Fingers and tongue sticking out, this guy's extra rude. Number 8, Ivysaur. It's a quadruped standing like a bipedal animal. Pretty easy to see why this one's bizarre. There's no ambiguity to it. He's just chilling there on 2 legs like, hey. It's even more strange when you consider that he goes from Bulbasaur, who's on all 4s, to standing Ivysaur, back to quadrupedal Venusaur for the final evolution. It's like when Bulbasaur evolves, he gains more hind leg strength and the bulb on his back is a good weight so he can stand when he's Ivysaur, but then when he evolves into Venusaur, it turns into a tree and it becomes too heavy where he's like, whoa buddy, I can't stand like this. Venusaur at least looks like he has control over the tree on his back in the red and blue sprite. The green version sprite though looks like he's getting crushed. Ivysaur shows us that bigger isn't always better.
It's like Pikachu, but stick a plant on it.
But why would you want to stick a plant on a Pikachu?
What if it's a botanist?
Also to note, Bulbasaur's sprite looks like it could be interpreted as leaning forward while standing on its back legs, but I've always viewed this as an action shot, like him flying through the air to tackle. We would sort of see this years later with its Ruby Sapphire Diamond Pearl sprites, where Bulbasaur's hopping around on its front feet in excitement, but Ivysaur and Venusaur have consistently stayed on all 4s over the years, making the red and blue Ivysaur an outlier.
Most of the artwork from the time consistently shows Ivy in all 4s. In Smash Brothers, it's the only quadruped fighter. You can say that Ivy is all 4 on the floor, but in Pokemon Red and Blue, it's showing off those hindquarters like it's doing a little party trick. Look what I can do!
Actually, back to Smash Bros for a second. Ivysaur shows off a bit more of its leg maneuvers there, including right here when it does Razor Leaf. It gains momentum right before the leaf comes out, where it goes into bipedal mode briefly. So headcanon, we can just say old Ivysaur was constantly priming their Razor Leaf attack. Number 7, Tentacruel. This one looks really good. When I say weird for the Tentacruel sprite, I mean in a way where my mind sees the sprite differently than what was likely intended. It's got that perpetually angry face that Tentacruel is known for, but instead of having its tentacles sway in the water in one direction or another like in the official sprites in art, it's using them like arms and crossing 2 of them, which is a hilarious result. I love how this pose makes Tentacruel look like the boss you don't want to mess with, or a bouncer at a club telling you you're not cool enough to get in. However, I also kinda see it in the opposite way, as if he's a petulant child that I just had to punish and now he's coping with the results.
So mad. What did you do to him?
I had to send him to his room and ground him for destroying a building during the theme song.
Well, sometimes you just have to sit with your feelings.
I just like how if you change your mindset on what his attitude is in this sprite, it goes from being an intimidating stance to him sulking like, man, you can't ground me, I'm Tentacruel.
It's the Pokemon Mona Lisa smile. It can be interpreted multiple ways. A majestic king with his scepter.
I could also see this sprite as his rant Sona online when he wants to make YouTube videos complaining about media. Like, and there have been 28 animation errors in this season of Pokemon, and it's only been 5 episodes. That Tentacruel and his wacky videos. Number 6, Geodude. If I didn't know that he was based on a simple rock, then I'm not sure if I could tell what he is based on this sprite alone. He kinda just looks like if a generic smiley face guy came to life, or I guess emoji would be a more modern term. The way they did the rough rock texture on his head looks like they drew a bunch of lumps as if he got hit on the head in a Looney Tunes gag.
He's been to too many rock parties, and he got a boo-boo falling off the cliff.
What scientific process would that be considered to be? Weathering? Erosion?
I'm not a geologist.
I've always interpreted the rock formation on his head to be like a pompadour, you know, Josuke, Johnny Bravo, maybe even a predecessor to Quaxley. I imagine most Geodudes are those guys who are like, I'm too cool for school. I only care about hot chicks and combing my hair.
I always liked the thumbs up he was giving. It made it feel like he was being a cool guy, since cool people give thumbs up and dude is a cool term from the 90s, and other decades as well, so it fit. Or maybe he's pointing with his thumb like an umpire, and he's saying, "Hey, what are you doing? Get out of here." Number 5, Pikachu. Who's that Pokemon? It's Pikachu! Honestly, this Pikachu sprite isn't far off from how he was drawn early on, so I wasn't going to include him. But with this sprite being made when the Pokemon mascot might have still been undetermined looking at history, it's cool to see how much Pikachu was redesigned from this early appearance over the years. Pikachu was chubby for Generation 1, which was noticeable with his early artwork, early anime design, and his Smash Bros model. Generation 2 was a midway point, where he still had a bit of the pudgy design, but he was less rotund. Generation 3 was where we got into more modern Pikachu, where they thinned him up, which is mostly how all modern Pikachu look now. Even so, he occasionally has a look where he's even thinner, and I don't like it. The other Pikachu designs are fine, but Peak Pikachu is the original round one. He's just a little puffball. As for the sprite, the pose is good, he's just running, and the face is goofy, it looks like they just drew it on. He's even emitting some electricity, which is something they did with a few of these early sprites where they're doing a little attack. The only thing that doesn't fit Pikachu is the circle on the belly. That seems to be an early design concept that they dropped, which makes this sprite feel inaccurate.
No, it's the pet me here circle.
It's clear they wanted this, since early art of Pikachu has a little white in the center of its body, and Raichu has always had the same circle on its stomach, but by Yellow version, the anime design overruled it, and that element of Pikachu died in Generation 1. However, it did return in the Detective Pikachu movie, where you see a bit of white fur in its center. Regardless, Red and Blue Pikachu is a good time capsule of what the rodent may have looked like if it never went mainstream. Number 4, Machoke. The whole Machop line was kinda messed up in Red and Blue. The Machop sprite always felt like a stretched out version of the original art since he was never that wide, even in early drawings, and the Machamp sprite felt like it was missing the texture around its mouth. But Machoke, I don't know, why did they choose that face? He's got the flex, he's got the pose, but his face looks like he's experiencing unspeakable things.
He has a fly in his eye. Don't bring attention to it.
The right half looks too cartoonishly happy, and the left forgot the pupil. I feel like you can't unintentionally get his face this wrong. Maybe they were going for something like a caricature of a bodybuilder, and they're trying to show that he's a bit of a goofball.
I like the idea that they're instinctual showmen. Some animals can navigate their ways through ocean currents, but these guys are perusing around in cave and mountain biomes, going, "Hey baby, check out the gun show." The world of Pokemon, it's a very strange natural order.
Why do all the Machokes look naked?
He's not naked, he has a power belt and underwear on.
They all look naked.
Listen, if you're saying that it's not clothing that it naturally obtains in the wild, that would imply that it's actually skin that looks like clothing, which means...
Naked. Naked. Always naked. False clothing. Flesh ribbons.
So yes, more naked. It's just more skin.
In the end, Machoke just needed a more on-model face, and we wouldn't even have noticed anything wrong. Maybe change those things on its head too, since it looks like it has hair now. It's got the Vegeta Widow's Peak going on. Number 3, Execute. Execute is classic Generation 1 design philosophy, where they take a Pokemon and duplicate its head. But while some other examples are at least connected to the same body, Execute is just a bunch of seeds that look like eggs that seem to be able to act autonomously but choose not to. Like, do they all get born at the same time? If one gets lost, is that one still considered an Execute? And when they evolve, what happens to the sentience of the eggs that don't become the heads on Executor? All these are questions that are likely never meant to be answered, but I'm asking them anyway. The main differentiator from other copy-paste designs is each egg has a crack in unique ways, with the one in the back being even more broken than the rest, but consistently, they're all the same size, maybe with the lead one being a bit bigger in certain versions. However, a bit bigger doesn't begin to describe the dude in the center. For some reason, they made one of the eggs huger and angrier than the rest. It's as big as a person. Looking at the original Japanese sprite, all of the eggs were the same size, so why did they enlarge the egg well beyond the official art for this game?
I love how the difference between them isn't slight. It's not like a few inches, a few centimeters. The main one is just huge. He's the Dawn egg.
I love that. That's the mama egg. It's the mama. You've upset her, so now she's going to kill you.
How is she even going to attack me?
It gets really close to your face and just stares at you, and then finally sits on you, and not in the good way.
So if she's the mom, what does that make the other eggs?
Her baby eggs. She's trained them for destruction only.
I'm not sure if this theory completely works out.
No, it's perfect sense. She's a mastermind.
I like to think the execute is just normal size, and it's doing one of those anime poses when a character's angry and visually towers over another character who's pissed them off, which would make sense since execute is found in the Safari Zone where you would throw rocks at it. The giant egg is also getting a head start for its evolution into Executor. That's another sprite where the heads are much larger than advertised. Like, why are they so big, and why did they shade the top of the heads like that? It looks like they're telling a spooky story around a campfire, or they are the spooky story. Number 2, coughing. How do you mess one up this badly? They placed the face on the lower half of its body below the poison design that's supposed to be on its belly. It doesn't have to look one for one with how it is on the artwork, but they didn't even get it close. You can't even make the excuse that it was just flipped 180 degrees, since the poison symbol is clearly right side up on the top, and the mouth is below the eyes.
When I was younger, I thought, hold on, maybe it's just a different perspective. Life is all a matter of perspective. But yeah, your magnifying glass, take a closer look, and no, they straight up put his eyes and his mouth in the wrong place.
This sprite sticks out even more when you consider that in the original red and green sprite, the face was not only in the right spot, but the sprite was almost perfect. They got it right the first time.
If you compare it to the original sprite from red and green, he's the life of the party. International red and blue, you realize he's upside down face.
Aww, face crotch. I feel like there's a Ballmasters character. Is there a Ballmasters character who's a face crotch?
Kinda, yeah. Do the Pokemon and Ballmasters fandoms overlap enough to get that reference? The only explanation I could make up is they were initially going to make coughing like Ghastly, where its body was also gaseous and its face just kinda floats around in its body. But I think it was established from the beginning that coughing has a solid body that was described as balloon-like, which is actually news to me. I never really thought of what coughing's body was made of. I always just assumed it was soft rock material. Regardless, it's going to take a bigger explanation on why there was a time period when its face was not where it belonged. We have a lot of honorable mentions, so let's rapid fire them. Pidgey, I don't know why it has realistic bird eyes here, while his evolutions have the anime eyes. Kakuna, I didn't know its stingers could do that in this form. Blastoise, here's another one where they got it right with the original sprite, but they misshaped it in the red and blue sprite. Nidoran, why is she shaped like that? Mankey, while other Pokemon look angrier than usual in this game, I feel like this is the only sprite when Mankey wasn't angry. Raticate, why does the mouth look like it's cartoonishly stretching, like when Squidward tried the Krabby Patty for the first time? Growlithe, it looks like it's made of purely fire, or it's some sort of ethereal being, or I can't really describe what it looks like with words. Maybe it just wants to eat my soul cause it's evil.
No, Growlithe eats kibbles and doggo Treatos.
Omastar, look at this guy, he's boogieing down, get him on the dance floor.
Vassal, I'm so happy. It survived fossilization just to learn the hustle.
If 4Kids ever dubbed an episode about Omastar, it would have been titled, You're a rock star, Omastar.
Tangela.
It's a bowl of spaghetti.
Snorlax, that's a paint me like one of your French girls pose if I've ever seen one. Slowbro, the Slowpoke part looks good, but why is the shelter on its tail so big? Is it supposed to be that big? Is that mutated?
His shell is eating his tail, so in retaliation, he is eating his shell.
Pinsir, this is mostly on model, but the eyes look off. Anyone else think they're cute? He looks unexpectedly cute.
Hey, what luck, a Pinsir. Damn it, he got away again!
And Mewtwo. You know, for an ultimate life form of sorts, he's got really poor posture in this sprite. Well, number 1 is for the sprite that goes the hardest, and it's a sprite I like to bring up a lot for how unnecessarily terrifying they made it. So let's get into it. Number 1, Golbat. Something I realized about the blue, red, and green sprites as years go by is they were going for a classic RPG monster style, where many of the Pokemon are supposed to be dangerous looking. They're not the marketable guys they later became. You're taming a beast when you catch them. These Pokemon are more likely to kill you than leave you alone if you wander into their territory unprepared, and this Golbat sprite embodies that design philosophy the most, I feel. It's the tongue. The tongue is like 50% of its body here, and makes this common bat feel like a bigger deal than it is. The tongue is swaying in the wind with drool coming off it, and I think he's ready to leap towards us. I don't know where they got the idea to give him such an extensive tongue, but in my Pokemon Stadium video, I mentioned that Golbat also sticks out its tongue there when attacking, so maybe there was a plan to utilize it in more visuals, but after those games, no new Golbat sprites or models appear to have used its tongue. Even in the original sprite, it didn't have its tongue out, so if showing its tongue more was the plan, that was a short-lived initiative. In fact, its wings are about the same size in the original sprite, but its body is shorter, so they just made Golbat more monstrous in red and blue. Looking at Golbat art from the time shows it's not supposed to be this terrifying. Some early art even makes it look kinda pathetic, so this sprite is the most threatening Golbat has ever been.
These Golbats are spooky! Oh, so that's why Agatha uses it. It's not because it's a ghost Pokemon, but because it's so terrifying. In real life, bats are the cuddliest little mammals. But remember, Golbat is 5 foot tall. It's the size of a slightly smaller adult, maybe a developing teenager. So just imagine going on your hike, and then all of a sudden this person-sized bat jumps in your face and goes, "Bleh, I want to suck your blood."
It's very cartoony.
What? You don't find it the least bit scary?
Because it's funny looking.
But the tongue, think about it coming close to you with that wet tongue.
I don't like this game.
Another thing to consider is that overlevel Golbats are also glitch Pokemon that can spawn when you do the old man glitch. So imagine having a fun day at the beach, and then all of a sudden a gigantic vampire bat is here to slay you. This thing has creepy pasta written all over it.
The final unsettling thing about this sprite is the eyes. Golbat is so unhinged that his eyes don't even fit on his face, they're just flying off. They drew them so big. They fit on his original sprite, so once again, they just made everything bigger with the red and blue sprite. I don't know why they felt they needed to make the eyes disproportionate with his face, but it does add to the creepiness of this sprite. So for going beyond the normal levels of chill and making some kids afraid to go into caves, this Golbat sprite is the weirdest of red and blue versions. Now, what did you think? Were all these sprites weird enough to make you question the original era of Pokemon, or were some of them more normal than we made them out to be? What are some of your favorite Generation 1 sprites, whether we discussed them or not? Let us know in the comments. Anyway, thank you all for watching, and we will see you in the next video.